Welcome to another sports Q&A here on Schleg Daddy TV. A reminder, I do these every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday here on going forward. If you want your sports-related questions answered by me, then all you have to do is go to Twitter and tweet your questions to @pfspot_Schlegel, and I'll put that information in the description box down below. You're watching the videos, you might as well send in your sports questions. You might as well tweet them to me. It's not that painful, I promise you. So let's go ahead and get started with this Q&A. @Edsel4 asks, how do you think Tracy McGrady's career would have been if he had never gotten injured and eventually injury prone? Oh, with T-Mac, I used to like T-Mac a lot. I don't think it would have turned out all that incredibly different. I don't see him as being a guy that was ever going to win a championship, as being a big-time star player on a team, because he was way too dedicated to Tracy McGrady and Tracy McGrady alone. I think part of the problem with him getting injured was because of the fact that 6'10", they kept trying to play him at two guard for years, and I think that eventually took a toll on his body and really wore him down to the point where he just became nothing more than really a spot-up three-point shooter, which was sad. I don't know how much differently it would have gone. Obviously, if he stayed healthy, he would have put up more points and maybe won another scoring title or two, but in terms of like championships and playoff appearances, I don't think it would have gone much different. @JGore492, with LeBron returning to Cleveland, where would you rank the top 5 teams in the Eastern Conference? In any particular order, let's see if I can get through 5. The Pacers, the Wizards, the Bulls, the Cavs, and probably still the Heat with Bosh and probably D. Wade, Luol Deng coming into the fold, Danny Granger coming into the fold if they can get anything out of him. I wouldn't totally sleep on the Heat just yet. Not necessarily as a championship contender, but one of the 5 best teams in the Eastern Conference, yes, absolutely. @Antonio Vargas01, with King James returning home, do you think his chances of winning multiple titles has decreased? Not necessarily, because I don't know if he had a chance to win multiple titles with the Heat with the way they were being constructed and were currently constructed. So I don't know if his chances really decrease that much, frankly, if at all. You look at a team that is young with full of upside that now has that galvanizing force, that leader who happens to be the best player in the NBA and LeBron coming to the Cavaliers. Yeah, I would say, if anything, maybe his chances of winning multiple titles, if he stays there for years and they could keep a lot of that core nucleus in place, may have actually increased. History Buff 188, do you think that the Cavs are already a championship team? If no, then what improvements do you think they would need? I don't think they're a championship team the way they are currently constructed. Maybe that is in part just because of the fact that they're going to need time to gel. They're going to need time to mesh. It's still a young team. Kyrie Irving hasn't won a lot. Andrew Wiggins, if they keep him, he's a rookie. Anthony Bennett was a huge flop last year as the #1 overall pick. But even if he comes back, and it seems like he's in shape right now, even if he gives a lot more this upcoming year, it's just a young team, and those young teams take time to learn how to win. Now, if they make a trade for a Kevin Love, that might make them even more likely to be an NBA championship contending team right away. But I still think they could use a little bit more help on the bench. They could use a little more help down low before we really start talking about them as a championship team right out of the gate. Chris S. Krager, in light of the Bucks' new uniforms, what do you consider the worst sports uniform overhaul ever? Ooh, ever. Some of the bad uniforms I've seen over the years, I guess you would classify them as overhauls, are some of the uniforms that the Oregon Ducks have. Oh, God, those are terrible. Just bad. Just bad. I realize everybody loves to kiss Nike's ass, and Oregon definitely loves to kiss Nike's ass because of their connection to Bill Bowerman and his connection to Nike, obviously. But at the end of the day, some of those uniforms are just god fucking awful. In terms of other uniforms that I could think of that were terrible changes, the Pirates of the late 70s. Oh, God, those uniforms were terrible. When they changed to those were terrible. In terms of any other ones, I don't know. Sports uniform overhaul. That's a good question, actually. But those are just a couple that come to mind at this point. @MC_Big Bird, what has been your saddest sporting moment watching both as a neutral and a supporter of a team? Saddest sporting moment as a supporter of a team? 2003 Cubs and the 2006 Chicago Bears. I would say the 2003 Cubs would be a little bit sadder, even though I love the Bears more because I fully anticipated and expected the Bears were not winning that Super Bowl that year. I told everybody that knew me at that time that Rex Grossman fucking sucked big felonious donkey dick, and the Bears were not going to win a Super Bowl with him as a starting quarterback. So as a result, I had prepared myself for that possibility. So that hurt. But the 2003 Cubs, that to me, by the time the trade deadline had happened and then the waiver wire deadline had happened, and you had Eric Karros, you had Randall Simon, you had Kenny Lofton, I thought that this was the team that was finally going to end the curse of the Billy Goat. Not only that, they would go on to win the World Series that year, and I always feel, even to this day, that they should have. You had the old Steve Bartman incident, but even worse than that is the fact that they were up 3-1 in that series. The fact that they had Pryor and Wood going on the mound in Game 6 and 7. This was supposed to be the rotation of the future. The Cubs were going to be the team of the 2000s. And now it's 2014. They're in the midst of a long rebuilding project. So I'd have to say that one hurts the most. Sporting moment watching neutrally. I don't know if I really have one necessarily. I really don't. I'm good. Yeah, I don't know if I really do. Add Alex Shirley 10. Who's the bigger problem for the Lakers, Jim Buss or Kobe? And is Jim Buss the next Jerry Krause? All right, Alex Shirley, let's get this straight. When Jim Buss takes 10 straight power forwards in the freaking NBA draft in the first round every year, then you can start comparing him to Jerry Krause. The bigger problem for the Los Angeles Lakers, I believe, might be Kobe Bryant. You're talking about a guy who is known as a bit of an egomaniac, that's known as not being the easiest to play with, and he also has a huge salary for the next couple of seasons that somewhat handicaps the Lakers' ability to improve that team around him. So it's one of those things where they're going to have to cater to the legend that is Kobe Bryant, sell some tickets, but at the same point in time, you don't want the Lakers to be bad long term. But if they sit there and piss off Kobe, you can piss off. It's just Kobe's the bigger problem, in my opinion. At T-Bar 121, what NFL backup quarterbacks do you think will get starts this year, and who could possibly become an everyday starter? Backups that'll get starts this year. You look at the rookies, assuming that the rookies don't win the jobs out of camp, even though I think a couple of them very well might. Bridgewater will get starts and become the everyday starter. I think Derek Carr will get some starts and eventually become the everyday starter. I think Manziel will obviously get some starts and probably become the everyday starter. I think Michael Vick could get some starts for the Jets because the Jets are stupid like that. Whoever's backing up Jake Locker in Tennessee, I think that might be Charlie Whitehurst. He'll probably get some starts. Whoever's backing up Jay Cutler in Chicago, probably Jordan Palmer, is probably going to get some starts. So there's a good answer for you. At 35, Robert 16. Who's to blame for the Oklahoma City Thunder not being able to win an NBA championship? Several factors. Russell Westbrook to a degree. Maybe the abilities of Scott Brooks to get a certain amount out of the team but not be able to take them to the next level. Maybe to a certain degree, Kevin Durant not understanding how to better assert and establish himself at times when his team needs him. You're also talking about the fact that they play an incredibly deep Western Conference. There's a lot of mitigating factors and circumstances that contribute to them not having won an NBA championship yet. At Mark_Wayland67, best players to never win a title in the NFL, NBA, and Major League Baseball. In recent times, your best players to not win a World Series would be Barry Bonds, obviously. Excuse me. Sammy Sosa, Ken Griffey Jr. Those are three that really stand out to me. In terms of the NBA, guys like Karl Malone, guys like Charles Barkley. Those are two very notable ones. John Stockton being another very obvious, very notable one as well. Elgin Baylor technically never really won an NBA championship because that 71-72 team that won it all, that won that 33 straight games, went 69-13 with Wilt and Jerry West and Gail Goodrich. Baylor retired like 9 games into that season, so he would definitely fit on that list. In terms of the NFL, obviously, you're going to look at players like Dick Butkus. You're going to look at players like Barry Sanders. You're going to look at players like Dan Marino. Those would just be some that would stand out there. At Nick Andros _, why don't we see any dominant college basketball players anymore? Very simple, brother. Because of the one and done rule. These top stars don't stay in college for 2, 3, 4 years. And a lot of the players that do stay 3, 4 years tend to play at mid-majors or smaller schools where they don't get the notice or the attention anyways. That's why we don't see those dominant college basketball players anymore. That's why the college basketball game is not in the great shape that a lot of people try to pretend to make it out to be. It's not in a great shape because you have school identity, sure, but you lack player identity with that school. You knew when a guy like a Grant Hill came into Duke, let's say, for example, in the early 90s. You knew he was there as a freshman. You knew that the next 3 years potentially you'd be able to watch him. Now, in today's climate, Grant Hill would go to Duke for 1 year, and then he would leave and go to the NBA, and then it's a cycle that starts all back over again. And at JH Mills 22 rounds out this Q&A by asking, where does Miguel Cabrera rank among the best hitters of all time? He's easily one of the best right-handed hitters that I've ever seen, and I think he definitely merits an argument for being one of the best pure right-handed hitters in the history of Major League Baseball. Is he ranked up there in the classification of a splendid Splinter Ted Williams? I don't know about all that quite yet because his career isn't done. He's still got a long ways to go yet. But Cabrera is a rare talent. Cabrera is a phenomenal talent. If you're even not a huge fan of Major League Baseball, if there are certain players that I say on your bucket list of people and players that you should watch and you should check out, and this is what Major League Baseball can be, Miguel Cabrera is right at the very top of that list in my opinion. So again, thanks to all of you that submitted your questions for this Tuesday Sports Q&A. Reminder, tweet your questions for the Q&As that come on this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. The information on how to do so is in the description box down below.